Before we get into this, I want to ask you something really quick. If you've ever landed on a video like this and walked away actually feeling different, not just temporarily pumped up, but genuinely shifted, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. We don't do fluffy motivation here. We don't throw quotes at you and wish you luck. We go deep, we go ancient, and we go practical. So if that's the kind of content you want showing up in your feed every single week, hit that subscribe button right now. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. And your future self, the stronger, calmer, more intentional version of you that this video is about to help you build, will thank you for it. I mean that. Now, let's get into it. Chapter 1. The most important decision you make every day that you don't even know you're making. Here's a question most people never ask themselves. What is the very first choice you make every single morning? Not what to eat, not what to wear, not whether to hit snooze. The very first choice, the one that happens even before your feet touch the floor, is this. Who is going to control my mind today? Is it going to be you, or is it going to be the world? And here's the brutal truth that most people spend their entire lives never confronting. The majority of human beings hand that choice over to the world the instant they wake up. They roll over, they grab their phone, they scroll through notifications, headlines, other people's opinions, other people's highlight reels, and before they've even had a single conscious thought of their own, they've already let the outside world set the temperature of their inner world. That's not living. That's sleepwalking through the most important moments of your day. There's a reason the ancient Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded the greatest empire the world had ever seen, who dealt with wars, plagues, political betrayal, and immeasurable personal grief, chose to begin every single morning with deliberate mental preparation. In his private journals, the ones he never intended for anyone else to read, he wrote something that stops most people cold when they first encounter it. He told himself, upon waking, that the people he would deal with that day would be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and difficult. Now, why would one of the most powerful men in history start his morning that way? Was he being negative, pessimistic, cynical? Absolutely not. He was being strategic. He wasn't trying to make himself feel bad. He was arming himself. He was building the mental architecture needed to remain calm, compassionate, and effective no matter what the day threw at him. Because when you've already prepared for the worst loses its power to knock you off balance. That's what this video is about. Neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics understood intuitively more than 2,000 years ago. The first moments after waking are the most neurologically significant moments of your entire day. Your brain is operating at a frequency that makes it extraordinarily receptive to new patterns. The thoughts you think, the words you speak, the intentions you set in those golden morning minutes literally begin the process of wiring your neural pathways for the next 24 hours. Think about that. You have a biological window every single morning where your mind is its most moldable, its most open, its most programmable. And most people fill that window with social media arguments and anxiety-inducing headlines. What we're going to do instead, what the greatest philosophers, generals, entrepreneurs, and thinkers across 20 centuries have done, is use that window intentionally. There are 10 specific declarations, 10 reality-grounded, battle-tested, neurologically powerful statements that, when spoken with conviction each morning, begin rewiring your mind from reactive to intentional, from fragile to resilient, from merely existing to genuinely thriving. These aren't affirmations in the wishful thinking sense. They're not about pretending the world is perfect or convincing yourself that nothing bad will ever happen. The Stoics had no patience for self-deception. What these declarations do is align your mind with how life actually works, and then equip you to navigate it with strength, clarity, and an unshakable inner foundation. The ancient Greeks had a word for the destination we're building toward, ataraxia. It means a state of complete and tranquil freedom from mental disturbance. Not numbness, not disconnection, not indifference, but a deep, grounded, absolutely unshakable peace that coexists with full, passionate engagement in life. The kind of peace that doesn't require the world to cooperate in order to exist. Ataraxia is not given to you at birth. It is built, one morning at a time, one declaration at a time, one conscious choice at a time. So let's build it. Chapter 2, Declaration 1. I am responsible for how today feels. Say this out loud right now, even if it feels uncomfortable. I am responsible for how today feels. Not your boss, not your partner, not the driver who cut you off, not the algorithm, not your childhood. You are responsible for how today feels. Now, I want to be crystal clear about what this means, because there's a version of this idea that leads to toxic self-blame, and that's not what we're doing here. Accepting emotional responsibility isn't about pretending you caused every bad thing that happens to you. It's not about denying that other people can be hurtful, unfair, or genuinely cruel. It's about something far more powerful than any of that. It's about reclaiming the last freedom that cannot be taken from you. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist, a philosopher, and a Holocaust survivor. He spent years in Nazi concentration camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, and others, watching people around him lose not just their freedom and their dignity, but their will to live. In the middle of one of the most systematic campaigns of human destruction in world history, Frankl made an observation that changed the course of psychology forever. He observed that even in the most unimaginably horrific conditions, some people retained a kind of inner freedom. They couldn't control what was happening to their bodies. They couldn't control the cruelty directed at them. But they could control, and consciously chose to control, how they responded to what was happening. And that choice, Frankl argued, was the last and most indestructible of all human freedoms. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Read that again slowly, let it land. If a man in a concentration camp, stripped of every external comfort, every social role, every physical freedom, could access and exercise that interior power, then what excuse do any of us have for surrendering our emotional state to traffic jams, social media comments, or a bad meeting at work? Most people live what I call emotionally reactive lives. Their mood is not their own, it's a weather vane, spinning in whatever direction the external winds blow that day. Someone is rude to them, and their whole day is ruined. They check their bank balance, and their confidence evaporates. Their phone buzzes with a critical message, and suddenly they're anxious for hours. This is what the Stoic philosopher Epictetus called allowing yourself to be enslaved by external things. And Epictetus knew something about actual slavery, because he was one. Born into bondage, physically crippled, and yet recognized across the ancient world as one of the most psychologically free human beings who ever lived. His core teaching was straightforward. We suffer not from the events of our lives, but from our judgments about those events. Change the judgment and you change the suffering. When you declare, "I am responsible for how today feels," you are making a conscious, courageous declaration of emotional independence. You are saying, "My peace of mind is not for sale. My happiness is not up for auction. My confidence is not contingent on whether the world decides to cooperate with me today." You are saying, "I am the author of my inner experience, not a passive reader of whatever story the world decides to write." This morning, place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and say these words as if you mean them, because you do. I am responsible for how today feels. My emotions are my choice. My peace is my decision. Today I choose strength over victimhood, clarity over confusion, and courage over fear. Watch what happens to your day when you start it with that kind of ownership. Chapter 3, Declaration 2. Nothing can disturb my peace without my permission. Your mind is a kingdom, and every kingdom needs a gatekeeper. Think about the medieval concept of a fortress. The walls exist not to keep the world out entirely, but to ensure that nothing enters without the consent of the king. The gate is controlled, access is deliberate. Visitors are assessed before they're allowed to set up residence inside the walls. Most people's minds have no gate. They're completely undefended, open to every critical comment, every catastrophic news headline, every passive-aggressive remark, every wave of social comparison that washes in through their phone screen. The result is a mental environment that resembles a city under constant siege, chaotic, exhausted, never fully at rest. Marcus Aurelius addressed this directly in his Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That line is so simple it almost sounds obvious. But most people live their entire lives without actually living it. They understand it intellectually. They nod along when they read it. But at the first sign of criticism or conflict, they hand over the keys to their inner fortress and let whatever's outside dictate what happens inside. Here's what it actually means to be the gatekeeper of your own peace. It means that when someone says something hurtful to you, you get to pause, genuinely pause, and decide how much of your inner space that remark gets to occupy. It doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending you're a robot. It means developing what the Stoics called the discipline of assent, the trained capacity to examine what has just happened and choose your response, rather than simply reacting automatically. There is a sacred space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl wrote about it. Epictetus taught it. Modern psychology calls it the response gap. In ordinary untrained minds, that gap is so small it might as well not exist. But in the mind of someone who has practiced this daily, the gap is wide enough to contain wisdom, choice, and genuine freedom. The practice of declaring, "Nothing can disturb my peace without my permission," every morning is training. It's mental rehearsal. It's the psychological equivalent of a boxer going through shadow drills before a fight. Not because the drill is the fight, but because the repetition builds the muscle memory that activates automatically when the pressure is real. Every morning, stand in front of your mirror and look yourself directly in the eyes, not at your reflection generally, at your eyes specifically, and say, "Nothing can disturb my peace without my permission. I am the guardian of my inner world. Today I decide who and what gets access to my mental and emotional space. My peace is not for sale, not for rent, and not available for negotiation." The world will still be difficult, people will still be unpredictable, life will still throw curveballs, but you will move through all of it differently, with a kind of centered, rooted stillness that most people around you will find both baffling and magnetic. Chapter 4, Declaration 3. Today I focus only on what I can control. If there is one idea that sits at the absolute core of Stoic philosophy, the single concept that, if truly internalized, can transform your relationship with anxiety, frustration, and helplessness, it is this one: the division of all reality into two categories, what you control and what you don't. Epictetus taught this as the foundational principle of his entire philosophy. He called it the dichotomy of control. And he spent his life teaching it to students who came from every level of Roman society, slaves and senators alike. Here is his formulation, stripped to its essence. Some things are within our power, others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, and aversion. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, and office. In modern terms, you control your effort, your attitude, your focus, your choices, your words, your interpretation of events, and your response to what happens. That is your domain. That is your territory. Everything else, other people's behavior, the economy, the weather, your company's price, whether your message gets replied to, whether your work gets recognized, how long you live, what other people think of you, sits entirely outside your circle of control. You can influence some of these things some of the time, but control, real, reliable control, no. And here's the staggering thing. Most people spend the majority of their mental and emotional energy on the second category, the category they cannot control. They lie awake worrying about what their coworker thinks of them. They spend hours catastrophizing about economic news. They rehearse arguments they'll never have with people who aren't even present. They agonize over whether they made the right impression at a dinner party 3 weeks ago. Meanwhile, and this is the painful irony, they neglect the first category almost entirely. Their actual effort today, their actual choices this afternoon, their actual response to what's happening right in front of them. The things they genuinely have power over. The Stoics used a powerful mental practice called the circle of control. Visualize your life as 3 concentric circles. The innermost circle contains everything you control completely: your decisions, your effort, your attention, your attitude. The middle ring contains things you influence partially: your relationships, your health, your finances. The outermost ring, the largest, contains everything beyond your influence: world events, other people's choices, the past, the future. Your assignment, according to Stoic philosophy, is to direct 90% of your attention to the innermost circle, perhaps 10% to the middle ring in practical terms, and zero, absolutely zero, to the outer ring. When you wake up each morning and declare, "Today I focus only on what I can control," you are making a strategic reallocation of your most precious resource, your attention. You are pulling your focus out of the vast, swirling chaos of uncontrollable things and directing it with laser-like precision toward the small, powerful, actionable sphere where your real power lives. The result is not passivity. It is not indifference to the world. It is the kind of focused, energized, purposeful engagement that produces real results, because your energy is no longer diluted across 1,000 things you can't change. Stand tall, set your jaw, and say it like you own it. Today I focus only on what I can control. I will not bleed energy on things that are beyond my reach. My attention belongs to my actions, my choices, my effort, and my response. This is where my power lives. This is where I invest. Chapter 5, Lesson 4. My worth is not measured by today's outcomes. This one might be the most quietly revolutionary of all 10 declarations. Because we live in a culture that is absolutely obsessed with outcomes, with productivity, with measurable results, with visible achievements, with the quantification of everything from your salary to your follower count to your daily step total. From the time we enter school as children, we are taught, relentlessly and without much nuance, that our value is a function of our performance. Good grade. You're worth something. Bad grade? Less so. Promoted? Valuable. Passed over? Questionable. Successful launch? You matter. Failed project? Better prove yourself. It is exhausting, and it is deeply, profoundly wrong. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, a man who served as advisor to emperors, who accumulated enormous wealth, who wrote some of the most beautiful philosophical prose in human history, learned this lesson through the most brutal kind of personal experience. He was exiled by one emperor. He was later ordered to commit suicide by another. Everything he had built externally, his position, his influence, his accumulated status, could be stripped away in an instant. And what he discovered in those extremes is something that no comfortable life could have taught him. The things that define your actual worth are entirely internal. They cannot be given to you by the world, and they cannot be taken away by the world either. They exist at a level that is simply beneath the reach of external circumstances. When you wake up and declare, "My worth is not measured by today's outcomes," you are breaking a chain that most people don't even realize they're wearing. The chain that says, "I have to earn my self-respect today." The chain that says, "If this doesn't go well, something is wrong with me at a fundamental level." This declaration doesn't ask you to stop caring about results. It doesn't encourage mediocrity or indifference to quality. It simply separates two things that were never meant to be fused: your effort and your identity. You can give everything you have to a pursuit, every ounce of skill, preparation, and passion, and still not get the outcome you wanted. That's not a statement about your worth. That's just life operating according to its own chaotic logic. The outcome is downstream of 1,000 variables, many of which you don't control. But the effort, the character you brought to it, the integrity you maintained, the person you chose to be during the process, that is entirely yours. The Stoics called preferred outcomes preferred indifference. Getting the promotion is preferred. Not getting it is not catastrophic. Winning the argument is preferred. Losing it doesn't diminish your dignity. These outcomes are worth pursuing, but they don't touch your fundamental value as a human being. Each morning, remind yourself, "My worth is not measured by today's outcomes. I am valuable because I exist, not because of what I produce or achieve. Today I will give my absolute best while knowing that my value as a person is not on trial. Whether I succeed or fall short today, I remain fully worthy of respect, love, and dignity, including from myself." Declaration 5. I will act, not just intend. Here is one of the most uncomfortable truths in all of personal development. Good intentions are the most sophisticated form of procrastination that exists, because intentions feel productive. They feel like doing something. You think about starting the business, and it feels almost like you've started it. You plan the workout, and it feels almost like you've done it. You mentally rehearse the difficult conversation, and it feels almost like you've had it. But the gym doesn't change your body. Your business plan doesn't pay your bills. Your rehearsed conversation doesn't actually repair the relationship. Only action does. Only execution does. Only the actual, imperfect, sometimes awkward, sometimes uncomfortable doing of the thing moves you forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself as a reminder that he clearly needed. In the morning when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being, not rising to plan the work, not rising to feel good about the work, rising to do the work. He understood, because he was human, subject to the same resistance and inertia we all face, that the intention to do something is meaningless without the follow-through. Virtue for the Stoics was not a feeling, it was not a belief, it was not even a plan. Virtue was action, the right thing done, not the right thing intended. The gap between people who achieve remarkable things and people who don't is rarely a gap in intelligence, talent, or opportunity. It is almost always a gap in execution, in the willingness to begin before conditions are perfect, in the ability to do the thing imperfectly rather than prepare to do it perfectly, forever. Psychologists call the habit of connecting your intentions to specific behaviors implementation intention. Instead of the vague, I want to get healthier, you say, I will act on my commitment to my body's health at 7 a.m. today. The specificity, the ownership, the action-oriented language, all of it changes the relationship between your intention and your behavior. When you declare, I will act, not just intend, you are drawing a line between who you have been and who you are choosing to become. You are committing to being a person whose word to themselves means something. A person of execution, not just aspiration. Stand up, square your shoulders, and declare it. I will act, not just intend. Today I choose progress over perfection, momentum over hesitation, and execution over endless preparation. My intentions are nothing without my actions. Today, I act. Chapter Declaration 6. Every challenge is a chance to grow stronger. There is a metallurgical fact that doubles as one of the most powerful metaphors in all of philosophy. The same fire that melts butter hardens steel. The same adversity that breaks one person forges another. The difference has nothing to do with the fire. It has everything to do with the material that enters it. James Stockdale was a United States Navy admiral and a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 7 years. 7 years of systematic torture, solitary confinement, and psychological brutality. He survived, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually intact. And when asked upon his release what had helped him endure, he pointed directly to Stoic philosophy, to Epictetus specifically, to the same ideas we're discussing right now. He said something remarkable that has come to be known as the Stockdale paradox. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. That is not toxic positivity. That is not wishful thinking. That is the most muscular, clear-eyed, hard-earned optimism imaginable. It says, I will face exactly what is true about this situation, without flinching, without denial, and I will refuse to believe it is the end of my story. The Stoics had a radical perspective on adversity that most modern people have never been taught. They didn't see difficulty as punishment. They didn't see hardship as evidence that the universe had turned against them. They saw every obstacle, every setback, every painful circumstance as a training exercise, a precisely calibrated challenge sent by fate to develop exactly the character quality they needed most. Marcus Aurelius put it powerfully, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Whatever is blocking you right now is not your enemy, it is your teacher. And the lesson it is teaching you, patience, courage, resourcefulness, resilience, humility, is exactly the lesson you need in order to become the next version of yourself. This doesn't mean you should romanticize suffering or pursue hardship for its own sake. Pain is real and it matters. But the Stoic perspective invites you to ask a different question when difficulty arrives. Not "why is this happening to me?" which is a victim's question that produces no useful answers. But what is this trying to teach me? What is this developing in me? What will I be capable of on the other side of this that I couldn't have been without it? A muscle only grows under resistance. A character only deepens through challenge. An ordinary life is only transformed into an extraordinary one through the willingness to grow precisely where growth is hardest. Say this every morning like a warrior preparing for battle. Every challenge I face today is a chance to grow stronger. I welcome difficulty as an opportunity to develop the character that my future requires. Today's obstacles are tomorrow's strengths. I do not beg for an easier path. I ask to become a better traveler. Chapter 8, Declaration 7. I will not compare my journey to anyone else's. Comparison is the thief of joy. You've heard that. But let me tell you what comparison is also stealing that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: your clarity. When you are constantly measuring your progress against someone else's visible milestones, you lose the ability to clearly see your own direction. You stop asking, "What do I actually want?" and start asking, "What should I want?" based on what seems to be working for them. You stop navigating by your own internal compass and start trying to follow someone else's map. A map that was drawn for a completely different terrain, a completely different destination, a completely different person. Epictetus taught how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. Social media has taken the ancient human habit of social comparison and weaponized it beyond anything the Stoics could have imagined. In their time, you could compare yourself to perhaps a few hundred people in your community. Today you can compare yourself to millions, in real time, curated, filtered, and specifically optimized to make their lives look as aspirational as possible. And here's the key thing you must never forget. You are always comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to their highlight reel. You see their promotion announcement. You don't see the 3 years of thankless late nights that preceded it. You see their perfect vacation photos. You don't see the relationship that's quietly falling apart at home. You see their confident presentation. You don't see the terror they felt before walking into the room. Everyone has a private reality that looks nothing like their public performance, including you. And your private reality, your real struggles, your genuine progress, your quiet wins, your daily small acts of courage, has more value than your public performance could ever fully capture. When you declare, "I will not compare my journey to anyone else's," you are doing something that requires tremendous psychological courage in the world we live in. You are choosing to define success for yourself, to establish your own metrics, to celebrate your own progress without needing it to measure up against anyone else's. Your journey is unique, not in a greeting card sense, in a profound, literal, irreducible sense. Your particular combination of background, strengths, wounds, dreams, resources, and circumstances has never existed before and will never exist again. The path that's right for you cannot be found on anyone else's Instagram feed. It can only be found by going inward and asking honestly, what do I actually value? What kind of life lived by me would feel genuinely meaningful? Each morning make this commitment to your own authentic path. I will not compare my journey to anyone else's. My path is mine alone. My timing is unfolding perfectly for who I am and what I am here to become. Today I celebrate the progress of others without diminishing my own. I am exactly where I need to be on my unique and irreplaceable journey. Chapter 9, Declaration 8. I choose discipline over motivation. Let me tell you the single most liberating truth about human achievement that you are probably never told. You do not need to feel motivated to do the work. Motivation is a feeling. And feelings, all feelings, are temporary. They arise, they peak, they fade. Motivation is real and wonderful when it shows up, and it is absolutely unreliable as a long-term strategy for building anything meaningful. Waiting for motivation before you act is like waiting for a specific weather pattern before you'll agree to breathe. You might get lucky some days, but you will not survive on luck alone. The Roman general Cato the Younger one of the most discipline-revered figures in all of Roman history, was legendary for voluntarily embracing discomfort. On cold days he walked the streets of Rome barefoot. He ate simple food even when he could afford feasts. He worked alongside his soldiers rather than commanding from comfort, not because he was an ascetic or a masochist, but because he understood something crucial. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are proving to yourself that you are someone whose choices are governed by values, not moods, and that proof compounds. Every single time you do the thing you said you would do, even when every cell in your body is arguing for the couch, you are depositing into the account of your own self-trust. You are building the most important foundation that exists, the knowledge that you can rely on yourself. Motivation says, "I'll start when I feel ready." Discipline says, "I start." Period. Motivation says, "I'll go to the gym when I feel energized." Discipline says, "I go, especially when I don't." The most successful people you admire are not, I promise you, more motivated than you are. They wake up tired. They face resistance. They have days where everything in them says, "Not today." The difference is that their actions are governed not by how they feel in the moment, but by who they have decided to be. Their behavior is married to their values, not held hostage by their emotions. The Stoics called this the discipline of action, the commitment to do what virtue requires, regardless of how you feel about doing it in the moment. Not because feelings don't matter, but because feelings are not the boss. Your commitments are the boss. Your values are the boss. Make this declaration your armor every single morning. I choose discipline over motivation. My actions are governed by my commitments, not my moods. Today I will do what I said I would do, regardless of how I feel about doing it. My discipline is not a burden. It is my superpower. It is the proof that I am someone who can be trusted, especially by myself. Chapter 10, Declaration 9. Gratitude will shape how I see the day. Here is something profound that is simultaneously scientifically documented and underappreciated in daily life. The brain you wake up with is not a neutral observer of reality. It is a meaning-making organ that has been shaped by every experience, every habitual thought pattern, every repeated emotional response you've ever had. If you have trained your brain, through years of scrolling, catastrophizing, complaining, and focusing on what's wrong, to look for threats, deficits, and disappointments, then that is what it will reliably find. Not because the world is objectively terrible, but because your brain has become exquisitely skilled at spotting exactly what you've trained it to look for. The reverse is equally true. When you practice genuine gratitude consistently, not as a feel-good exercise, but as a disciplined daily act of directed attention, you are literally reshaping the neural architecture of your perception. Neuroscience confirms this. Regular gratitude practice increases activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, strengthens connections associated with positive emotional processing, and measurably increases baseline levels of optimism, resilience, and life satisfaction over time. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He understood that most of what we call the good life is already present, already here, right now, surrounding us on all sides, and we simply don't see it because we're looking past it toward what we don't have yet. Right now, as you listen to these words, your heart is beating, your lungs are working. Somewhere nearby, there is clean water available to you. There is shelter above your head. You are hearing these ideas through technology so advanced it would have been categorized as magic by anyone alive even a century ago. The baseline of your existence contains miracles, plural, ongoing, unremarkable only because they are familiar. The Stoics practiced a technique called negative visualization, the deliberate imaginative exercise of losing what you currently have. They would spend time in meditation, imagining the loss of their health, their relationships, their home, their freedom, not to become morbid or despairing, but to inoculate themselves against taking these things for granted. The practice produced something remarkable, an intensified appreciation for the present, experienced not as a philosophical ideal but as a felt, visceral, immediate recognition of abundance. Gratitude doesn't ask you to pretend your problems don't exist. It asks you to hold them within a larger frame, one that also includes everything that is right, working, beautiful, and given. It asks you to choose, each morning, which lens you will look through today, the lens of scarcity or the lens of abundance. Begin each morning with this. Gratitude will shape how I see this day. I will look for the good that surrounds me, because it is already there. Today I choose abundance over scarcity, appreciation over complaint, wonder over worry, and presence over anxiety about what I don't yet have. My grateful heart creates my experience of a rich life. Chapter 11. Declaration 10. I will end this day better than I started it. Every sunrise is a contract, not a guarantee, a contract. It offers you exactly one day, 24 hours of raw material, and it asks you one simple question. What will you make of this? Not perfection. The contract doesn't require perfection. It doesn't ask you to solve every problem, achieve every goal, or transform yourself completely by nightfall. It asks for something both simpler and more profound: progress. Intentional, directed, honest progress, even if the step forward today is small enough that no one else would notice it. Seneca maintained a nightly ritual that modern productivity science has essentially rediscovered and confirmed. Before sleep each evening, he would ask himself a series of questions. What wound did I heal today? What failing did I resist? What virtue did I practice? Where did I fall short? And what will I do differently tomorrow? He wasn't performing this examination for an audience. He wasn't measuring himself against anyone else. He was simply insisting on being a conscious participant in his own becoming, rather than a passive passenger in a life that was just happening to him. The mathematics of consistent small improvement are genuinely staggering. A 1% improvement compounded daily for 1 year does not produce a 365% improvement. It produces a 3,700% improvement, 37 times better. That is the compound interest of daily intentionality. It sounds almost too simple to be significant, until you track it across a lifetime. When you commit each morning to ending the day better than you started it, you transform the entire texture of your daily experience. Every difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to practice courage or compassion. Every mistake becomes data, information about where your approach needs refinement. Every setback becomes a redirection, pointing you toward a more accurate understanding of what will actually work. Every frustrating moment becomes a chance to practice exactly the equanimity you're trying to build. And here is perhaps the most liberating aspect of this declaration. It makes failure structurally impossible. Because even a terrible day, a day of mistakes, misfortunes, setbacks, and disappointments, can still end better than it started, as long as you extract something from it. A lesson, a recalibration, a moment of honest self-examination, an honest acknowledgement of what went wrong, and a clear intention about what you'll do differently. The only way to truly waste a day is to let it pass without learning anything from it, without growing even slightly, without becoming even marginally more the person you are capable of being. Your future self exists. They are not a fantasy. They are the real flesh and blood person you are constructing through the choices you make today. And they are counting on you, not on some perfect, mythically motivated version of you. On you right now, today, in this ordinary morning, making this quiet commitment. I will end this day better than I started it. I will invest this day wisely. I will extract wisdom from everything that happens, the beautiful and the difficult alike. By the time I close my eyes tonight, I will have grown. Even if the growth is invisible to everyone else, it is real, it is mine, and it compounds. Conclusion: the blueprint for an unshakable life. 10 declarations, 10 morning commitments, 10 deliberate acts of mental and emotional sovereignty. Let me walk you through them one final time, not as a recap, but as an affirmation. Read these slowly. Let each one settle before moving to the next. 1. I am responsible for how today feels. 2. Nothing can disturb my peace without my permission. 3. Today I focus only on what I can control. 4. My worth is not measured by today's outcomes. 5. I will act, not just intend. 6. Every challenge is a chance to grow stronger. 7. I will not compare my journey to anyone else's. 8. I choose discipline over motivation. 9. Gratitude will shape how I see the day. 10. I will end this day better than I started. These are not affirmations for people who want to feel better temporarily. These are declarations for people who want to become someone different, someone more resilient, more intentional, more free, more genuinely alive in their own experience. And here is the thing that makes Stoic philosophy different from every pop psychology shortcut, every motivational hack, every feel-good morning ritual that fades by Tuesday. It is grounded in an honest, unsentimental understanding of how the world actually works. It doesn't promise you that positive thinking will eliminate your problems. It promises you something far more valuable, that if you develop the right inner architecture, you can handle whatever comes, with wisdom, with grace, with genuine strength. The Stoics were not pessimists. They were the most grounded optimists who ever lived. They believed, with every fiber of their philosophical conviction, that the human being is capable of extraordinary inner freedom. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom within difficulty. Not freedom from loss, but freedom through loss. Not freedom from challenge, but freedom because of how we choose to meet challenge. That is the freedom these declarations are building toward. One morning at a time, one declaration at a time, one small, intentional, compounding choice at a time. You don't have to transform overnight. You don't have to get all 10 perfect on the first day. Start with the one that resonates most deeply with where you are right now. Let it settle into your morning routine. Then add another, then another. Your mornings shape your days. Your days shape your weeks. Your weeks shape your years shape your life. And your life, the choices you made in all those ordinary mornings, shapes your legacy. Begin tomorrow. Begin today. Begin now. And if this landed for you, if even one of these declarations shifted something in how you see yourself and your mornings, please do 3 things. Hit the like button so the algorithm knows to share this with people who need it. Share this video with one person in your life who could use this perspective right now. And subscribe to this channel, because we have more of this coming. More depth, more ancient wisdom made radically practical. More tools for building the kind of inner life that can withstand anything the outer world throws at it. Your future self is counting on the choices you make today. Make them count.